The contracts of GTA Online have been very strange. They got released in 2016 and didn't really make a comeback until 2021. Now, because I didn't want to rank hundreds, potentially thousands of missions in the game, I wanted to only rank the contracts that are specified by the game's definition to be contracts, if that makes sense. So these are all the different contracts are as followed, being the MC Clubhouse contracts, the Auto Shop contracts, the Agency contracts, and the Salvage Yard Robberies, which are kind of iffy, but they were specified to be contract style missions. So I guess without further ado, let's get started with it. And the worst contracts in all of GTA Online, they have to be the MC Clubhouse ones, because these, well, again, came out in 2016, didn't really get updated, their pay is pretty shit compared to anything in the game nowadays, and they're just overshadowed by pretty much everything. So the worst one, in my opinion, has to be the cracked contract. This one, you're pretty much stealing money from a safe guarded by a bunch of NPCs. It's not a hard mission by any means. It's actually probably the easiest one out of this entire video, but you just have to crack into a safe. Now, if you've never done a lock like this in person, like you've went to school, had a locker before, you basically twist it right, twist it left, and then twist it right again. But how the game works is you just have to wait until the lock on screen starts shaking a lot, and you just wait a second and it unlocks that part of the safe. Now, what makes it so bad is once you get the money bag that's inside of it and deliver it, it's only $7,000 per player. So if you're solo, worst thing in the whole game. Now the next one up is Hit the Roof. I don't know how good this contract is because I actually didn't complete it in the gameplay you're seeing now. What you have to do, go to the destination and get on top of a roof. You have to take out a bunch of enemies, and in the meantime you also have to look for, I believe, a cutting saw of sorts. I don't know if that's actually what it's called, but this took me about 10 minutes to find this thing because it's inside of a little building that has 2 openings on the side, and the game doesn't even specify where it's at. You actually just have to look for it for yourself. And once I got it, I realized I destroyed the cargo bob you have to use to pick up the crate. Now, if you destroy the cargo bob, you then have to look for the keys of the oppressor, which I just couldn't find them. I searched for 10-15 minutes and eventually I just blew up the oppressor out of anger, and it just is not a fun mission ever. Now the first contract where you need at least 2 players is Fragile Goods. This one is kind of pointless. You just destroy 4 vans around the map, and these can take like 10 rockets to blow up. You can see in the gameplay, I am just hanking this guy with rockets after rockets after rockets, and he just will not blow up. Once you destroy all of them, you complete the mission or the contract. You don't really get paid that well, but you still get paid some money. Another 2-player mission is the Weapon of Choice. Very simple and straightforward. You and your friend have to go to 2 different locations and use the weapon that the game tells you to use to take out the target to get the bonus money. Now for me, I believe I had to use a sniper rifle, and my girlfriend Kira had to use, I think, a hatchet or an axe or something like that. Once we took out the targets, that was it. There's nothing really to this mission, but it's just so much easier than the last ones, and it's a little bit more fun because you're actually doing stuff. Another 2-player mission is 9/10 of the law. You have to steal some bikes from the police impound. I didn't really find this one fun, but I found it pretty simple and straightforward, and didn't really have a problem with it. You just have to steal some bikes from the impound and then deliver them to the drop-off location. Pretty simple. Now another one pretty similar to that is Outrider, where again going to use some bikes, but this time you're not stealing anything from the impound or getting police. You're instead gonna collect some contacts on a motorcycle. It could be your own motorcycle or the one that the mission gives you, and just deliver 4 separate contacts to the drop-off location. I don't really know why you need 2 players to do this, because you get 30 minutes to do it, so you could easily do it solo, but again, it's a pretty okay mission. Now again, we have our solo contracts, the first one being Torched. Probably the easiest one, potentially. All you have to do is go to the location and destroy some munitions with Molotovs. I think you could also use explosives, but the game specifies Molotovs, and that's all you gotta do. I mean, there's no like deliver something to somewhere or anything. You just destroy the stuff that's there and you're done. And one of the more tedious missions, which doesn't make a whole lot of sense to be here, is Jailbreak. This one you have to go steal a prison bus that is just kind of driving throughout the map and deliver those prisoners to escape helicopters. Now I think I put it here, 1, because it's pretty simple and straightforward, and 2, it gives about $20,000. Now surprisingly, one I had fun with was By the Pound. It's not really any different from the previous ones. You gotta go to the location, which can be pretty far away, and just take out some people. That's it. Now the main guys you have to take out, they're on a boat and they're trying to escape. So as long as you take them out before they get far away, you can just get the product and leave. PWO being the next one up, you just have to rescue a client from, I think, really anybody. It could be police, the O'Neill brothers like I am in the contract you're seeing now, or maybe like the Lost MC members, not too sure. You just have to make sure you get the client before they actually die and just deliver them to their drop off location. Then we have the gun running contract. This one you have to go to the weapon deal and load the weapon cases, I believe, into the back of a Rumpo van. Pretty easy, and just drive it to the location. I don't know why I enjoy this one so much, maybe because I drive the Rumpo van and it gives me some nostalgia. I'm not too sure, but it was still fun nonetheless. Then we have life and death bikes, pretty similar to the ones previous where you just have to go to a location. This one you actually have to go inside of a house and try to reveal an elevator. Now this one can be kind of not very fun because you have to flip some switches in order to reveal the elevator. The first one I flipped, I got electrocuted, so that wasn't too good. The one that Kira flipped, she would trigger the alarm, and then finally the third one, open the elevator. Once inside the elevator, we go into the garage and steal the death bike that's in there. Going to the final location, we have to take out a bunch of enemies, and once those guys are done and taken care of, we now get a choice to deliver the death bike, I think, to the location that is specified, or bring it back to the MC Clubhouse. If you bring it back to your clubhouse, you earn a juicy $40,000. So it's actually pretty good to do this. And lastly, we have guns for hire. If anyone has played these contract missions in the past, you know this one was the one to do because it paid the most. This one requires at least 2 players, and you have to go pick up some NPCs and some SUVs. Make sure they do not die while you're delivering them. Once you get to the other location, you have to defend them for about 5 minutes. Once the defense is over, I do believe you earn maybe like $35,000, $40,000, something like that. It is like the most paying contract out of all of them, so it is really good to do. Once you have it, you really should do it because it's just good and easy to do. And that was all the MC Clubhouse missions or contracts, whatever you want to say. Now we can move on to ones that were really disappointing, being the Salvage Yard robberies. Now, these ones I will not have gameplay for because, well, there's 5 separate ones and you only can do 3 a week. So I don't want to be sitting here for potential weeks on end and not getting this video done because I couldn't get gameplay for these. So I'll just show a picture of what they somewhat look like and just explain what you do. So the worst one, in my opinion, is the McTony robbery, where you're going to have to infiltrate a submarine. So one, you have to go across the entire map to a submersible that you got in the setups, and then drive that submersible underwater all the way to the submarine, which is another like 2 miles, which is stupid. Once inside the submarine, a lot of stuff you got to do. You got to find out like the head of security, you got to hack the submersible navigation systems and all that stuff, and after all of that, you finally can get the car out of it and drive all the way back across the map to your salvage yard. It takes like 30 minutes to do this, and it's just a huge waste of time for like $300,000. Next up, we have the cargo ship robbery. Kind of the same idea, where it just takes a really long time for the most minimal amount of money as possible. This one, you have to infiltrate a cargo ship instead and do a bunch of different shit, where you take out a bunch of enemies, get to the captain's quarters, take out the captain, I think steal some keys to disable air defenses or something like that. Then you have to discover what cargo container the vehicle is in that you're stealing, then wait for an NPC to get an airlift helicopter to take the cargo container, fly for like 10-15 minutes until the drop-off location, and then drive the car back to your salvage yard, and it just takes too long. Next up, we have the podium robbery, which is actually pretty cool because it has a unique feature where you can rappel up and down in part of the mission. This one, you're going to be infiltrating the casino instead. I can't quite remember exactly where you go or how you do it or anything, but basically disable the inside of the casino where it's blacked out. Have to use like a flashlight to navigate around the map, and it just takes kind of a long time, but eventually you get down to the bottom of the casino where like there's cars parked and all that stuff, and then you just have to steal the vehicle itself, take out enemies while you're leaving, and it's pretty much that simple. It's not too hard, but I feel like there's just not really enough going on that is unique. You kind of just do the same stuff again. Then we have the Duggan robbery, where you steal a vehicle in the arena. This one I really enjoy because you have a lot of involvement in it. So you basically go to the arena and you have to sit in the stands and disable the car you're stealing with a nano drone using an EMP device. Once you disable the car, you basically have to go down into the arena itself, take the vehicle, wait for the tracker to disable, and then leave the arena. But then there's going to be another bomb attached to your car that you have to drive to Howe's workshop, have him work with the bomb, get it off the car, and then drive it back to your salvage yard. The last robbery, being my favorite one, is the gangbanger robbery, where you have to go inside of a police station using like gas and all that to knock out all the cops, stun all of them, all that stuff, and then release a man named King Tiny. Once you release him, get him out of the police impound, whatever, and then take him to an escape helicopter at the airport. He will then tell you where the car is that you're stealing. You go over to where the car is, take out a bunch of guys, and then bring it back to your salvage yard. Pretty easy stuff. I like the involvement you have, and overall, it's just a really laid back robbery you can do. That was all the salvage yard robberies. We're now getting into some juicy stuff, being the auto shop contracts, so let's get started with that. Now, all of the auto shop contracts were actually pretty good. Pretty much every single one of them paid about 150,000, and then there was one that was the best one, paying about 270,000. Now, the worst one out of these is just absolutely horrendous. It is a super dollar deal. To start, you have to go across the entire map chasing down an MOC. Mobile Operations Center. Then you have to damage this thing enough where it stops and breaks down. Usually this just kind of happens on its own. You can't really do a whole lot of damage with an SMG and some sticky bombs. It doesn't do a whole lot, I'll just tell you that much. Once it finally breaks down and you enter the MOC, you then have to hack a keypad, take out some enemies, and now search some crates for some bank plates. Pretty easy from here. Once you have all the bank plates, you just go back across the map and deliver them. Not too hard there. It's just still a big pain in the ass doing this. Then we have the agency deal. This one, I mean, it has a lot more involvement than the super dollar deal, but it also kind of feels like it's wasted potential. First thing is you have to infiltrate an IAA base, pretty much just being the exact same one that you infiltrate in Act 1 Doomsday Heist. Now, there is a lot of enemies in here, and with a loadout that is not your personal loadout, for me I had a mini SMG, it was just not fun. There's so many guys in there with assault rifles, shotguns, SMGs, it was just not fun. I even died one time, even with snacks and armor, it just was not working out ever. Eventually I had to get through all of them, and then I got to a guy that I had to interrogate or something. I think he's the one that tells you where you have to get the recipe that you're stealing. Once all that's over, you have to leave again, taking out a bunch more enemies that can instantly kill you. Then you have to search for the recipe in the ground. You have to dig for it. Now, I wish you actually used a shovel and you had involvement doing this instead of it just being a cutscene, but you know, it's whatever. Once you have the recipe, that was pretty much it. Deliver it to a location and that is done. The data contract is next up. This one is kind of like the previous one, but you have a little bit more involvement. So first off, you have to go inside of a bunker, taking out a bunch of enemies, and at the same time, you have to steal some hard drives. There's 4 in total you have to steal, and you know, not too hard there. The enemies don't have as much resistance as the ones in the agency deal, but still they can be kind of a pain in the ass. Once you have all the hard drives, you have to go to the Elysian Island at the bottom of the map and put the hard drives into a computer or a terminal next to Avi Schwartzman, a throwback to Pacific Standard. And for like 5 minutes while this is uploading, you have to defend Avi Schwartzman with a anti-aircraft trailer you got in one of the setups, and that's pretty much it. I actually do like this end part because it feels like you're really powerful and the enemies can't really do anything about it, but at the same time it is kind of annoying because you can't move the trailer and shoot it at the same time, so it can be kind of tedious. But overall, I would say this is a very fun contract to do. Now we have the Lost Contract. I don't know if I really want to have this one this high anymore, but it's still kind of fun. You can kind of think of it as the super dollar deal, but you have more involvement and there's actually checkpoints between the driving points instead of just going from one end of the map to the other. But here you have to destroy 4 separate meth labs. Once you get into one, you plant the bomb and that's it. It blows up after you drive away, and you have to do that 3 more times. Of course, there's going to be enemies in between each meth lab, and when you get there, there's sometimes enemies inside the meth lab. But once you destroy all of them, you now have to take a phantom wedge that you got in one of the setups and steal a tanker trailer from the Lost MC camp. It really isn't too hard as long as you take out the members in the Lost MC camp and don't die like I did. You just drive the tanker to the drop-off point and that is it. Pretty fun, I'd say. The Phantom Wedge is a very fun vehicle to drive since it knocks every vehicle out of the way. It's just a great contract overall. Then we got the bank contract. Pretty much the same idea as the Lost contract, except you're stealing from banks. You go from point A to point B to point C to point D, E, F, and just go inside of the banks, the Fleesa banks, and use thermal charges on the gates to get inside and just steal the cash. Maybe the Lost contract is actually better than this one because you have a little bit more to do, but I like this one because it's laid back, it's chill, you just steal some money, there's not a whole lot of resistance from the cops, and it's just kind of nice to do. Then we have the prison contract. This one, I don't usually like having anything involved with the prison because it just takes a long time, but this one, pretty fun. First of all, you use a ramp to jump inside of the prison that you got in the setups. Already a pretty cool feature that we don't really get to use that often in the game. Then you have to take out 4 different targets around the prison. They're usually grouped, so you only have to go to 2 different locations inside the prison to take them out. Pretty easy stuff. Once they're done, you now have to rescue a man named Little D from a prison bus. You just take out the driver, and then he gets in your car, and that's it. And then you just go to the destination while losing the cops at the same time. Pretty easy stuff. I just like the involvement you actually have, jumping into the prison and all that. It's fun. Then we have the ECU job, one of the rare missions in the game where you have contact with the train. So the first thing you have to do is destroy 4 brake cylinders on the train itself. This can be kind of tedious because you have to shoot them while driving, while following the train and all that. It just isn't easy to do. if you don't have good aim or you're not on mouse and keyboard. But now you have to search the train cars for some ECUs inside of different containers using a saw that you got in the previous setups. I find this just kind of enjoyable, because at the same time you're searching crates, taking out enemies, going through different train cars. It's just interesting to kind of do. And then when you have all the ECUs, deliver it to KDJ and you are finished. And lastly, the Union Depository Contract. I feel like everybody likes this one as their favorite because it pays the most and it's the easiest to do. First thing you got to do is infiltrate the Union Depository with a security vehicle that you got in the setups, and then you're going to be stealing some gold. And that's kind of the gist of it. Once you steal the gold, you now have to escape the Union Depository. There being a lot of resistance from the cops. I mean, it's the Union Depository, of course, is going to be a lot of cops. But taking all of them out, you now have to use your getaway vehicle, which is the one that you chose before you started the mission. It could be your own vehicle or the one that Santa gives you. And you just have to deliver the gold to the client while losing the cops. It's not too hard, it pays well, and it's just great all around. And that was all of the auto shop contracts. Pretty easy stuff. They're all great to do, but now we can move on to the best contracts, being the agency ones. These are all really good. They're quick, easy to do, make you good money, and they're actually fun. You can have enjoyment out of these, and actually get to do stuff in them as well. And then there's also a really big contract at the end. We'll talk about that. That's going to be number 1. But the worst agency contract out of all of them, it's still good, but it's just boring compared to the rest, being gang termination. There can be many different locations around the map. You could have one across the map, next to you, whatever, and you have to go to the location and take out a bunch of enemies. Usually what you have to do is take out 4 different captains or gang leaders, and the game doesn't specify where these guys are at. You actually just have to find them yourself. Using an armored Kuruma makes this infinitely easier. It's really easy and straightforward. You just have to find them. It takes a little bit of time, and once you're done, you just leave the area, and that is it. Pretty easy. Next up is liquidize assets. This one also has a couple variations where first you have to look for a guy on the map, follow him. It could be a motorcycle, a normal vehicle, or a helicopter. Once you follow him for long enough, he'll lead you to the location that you have to destroy. Getting inside the building, there's going to be a lot of guys to take out. If you don't have snacks or armor, they're probably going to take you out fairly quickly. But once they're all taken out, I think you also have to destroy a couple of crates in there, and then plant 3 different bombs to destroy this area. After doing all of that, you leave the building, it gets destroyed, then you get the cops, which is kind of unfortunate, but you know, it is what it is. Losing the cops will complete the contract. Pretty easy. Now, one contract that I always didn't really like getting, but actually is quite enjoyable because you can just sit back, relax, and take out some enemies. It's asset protection. There's a 10-minute long protection mission, and if you have like a Kanjali, makes it infinitely easier and way more enjoyable. And that's pretty much it. You just sit there protecting some crates for 10 minutes. Now, recover valuables is one that it's kind of fun. It can be tedious, and you have to like really know the mission for it to be enjoyable. But you have to go to the location. It could be Tequila La or the Vanilla Unicorn. Take out the enemies, look for the safe, look for the code for the safe, which I think usually has 3 different spawn locations. Sometimes it can be really hard to find if you don't know the locations. Then you just open the safe, take the valuable that's in there, and leave the area and bring it back to your agency. Next up, we have vehicle recovery. Pretty much the opposite of recovered valuables because you're stealing a vehicle, not just some jewelry. This one's a little bit harder because you actually have to do more. The one I got is stealing a bike. I went to a hangar, I have to take out some guys there. Usually there's a lot. You have to have some snacks and armor, know what you're doing. Once you have all of them taken out, you just steal the vehicle that you have to steal. For me, it was in the hangar, of course, so it's always gonna be in the back of a plane, but if you get like an auto shop, it's going to be like in the corner where you least expect it. Then driving it to the exit doors, you also have to hit a button. More enemies will spawn, take those guys out, leave the area, and bring it back to your agency. And my favorite one to ever get is Rescue Operation. This one could also be across the map or next to you, similar to the gang termination one, but once you get there, you have to find the client you're rescuing. Usually you listen out for gunshots, or it could be a signal flare, and once you find them, there's going to be a bunch of enemies you have to take out and then rescue the client. Sometimes this can be kind of not working well because you have to be right next to the client for him to actually go anywhere, but overall pretty easy. And of course, the best contract in the entire game is literally the contract. The Dr. Dre one, where you have to find the guy that is releasing his unreleased music and, you know, all that good stuff. Now, I don't want to go too in detail with this because it could have its own video explanation, all that stuff of how the contract works, but essentially you can get $1 million in an hour and a half. So it is definitely the best contract in the entire game to do, and I'm sure everyone can agree with me on this that it is the best contract in the entire game. Now, that has been me ranking every single contract. If there is a video idea you would like me to do next, let me know. Don't make it too hard though. But that's been it. Hope you guys have an amazing rest of your day, and I'll see you guys in the next video I make. Peace out, everybody. Don't shit talk me in the comments, please.